On the other hand, I think it's also complicated in the other way, and I want to talk about that if you'll indulge me a little. I remember the first time I really thought about this issue, and not exactly this issue, actually, it was framed a little differently, was in about 1958. I think I was 13. And my 19-year-old sister was pregnant. And that was before abortion was legal, and also I was in a very conservative Christian family. And I remember how my dad sprung into action and there had to be an immediate marriage. Didn't quite understand all the nuances of that, but it seemed to be okay. And actually I did remarkably well. I remember I started getting excited as I saw my sister get ready for birth, and ultimately she lived with us with her husband the last month before the baby was born. And I don't know, as I was pondering this, I remembered just some of the silliness of it. I was hoping, because we tended to have mostly girls in our family, that her baby would be a boy. And I remember when Lauren was born, I was a little disappointed that she was a girl. And I called her Lauren George. Yeah, that was kind of silly and kind of rude, and I'm almost embarrassed to share it. But you know, I was just a young little punk kid, but it's been, you know, and it was tough to see what happened. That hurried marriage was a disaster. Frankly, the new husband, the father of Lauren, was a lazy, immature 20-year-old who was unwilling to accept most of the responsibilities of life. And not only that, but he was abusive and cruel, both mentally and physically. And my sister had to end that with a very ugly divorce, which was another ugly experience in our life. But, you know, it's really neat. Just day before yesterday, I got an email from Lauren George. She always signs it Lauren George. We have a good time. She's in her 50s and doing well. But it was a complication as my life evolved, because in the 70s then I became a budding liberal. Some of you have a little trouble with that, but it was kind of interesting, and I was very supportive of abortion and a lot of other liberal topics. And then that's when I began having my clinical experiences. And I began to discover that abortion was not the simple medical procedure that we were being told it was. I remember as I began to talk to people, some of which had recently had it, many of which had had it many years and lived with pain and agony and secrecy for years, that we had profound and painful and difficult experiences. Many times they cried. Yeah, on occasion I cried too. The impacts on their life were enormous. Often suicide attempts, chronic depression, marital and personal dysfunction, a whole lot of troubles in their lives. And I remember, and I have to be careful here that I don't disclose specifics of cases. I have to do more in compilations. But over the years, I worked with hundreds, I'm not sure it was thousands, but hundreds of such people. And there were lots of different people too.
Excuse me, Representative. Representative Huffman yields his time. Please continue.
Thank you for the yield. Those were difficult times as we talked. And the struggles were amazing, and the impact these had on these people. I remember a number of people coming in and talking about the fact that they were in their 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th divorce, and they thought they ought to explore what was going on. And I think that was wisdom. And I also remember, too, numerous times talking to mothers, particularly mothers in their 50s, who some 10, 15, 20, 30 years later had learned about the abortion and had now understood some of the things that they didn't understand and were horrified and hurt to realize that they hadn't had the discussion that they could have and should have had with that daughter. I guess it's not a simple medical procedure. And I think where I fault the bill and our general approach down here is our failure to really provide support and in-depth information and actually make sure that instead of a politically correct action, that it is an informed decision. And that's where my complaint comes. And that's where my concern and why today I'll be voting no. I remember in my freshman term I took in my psychology class, I read Sigmund Freud, and he said there are no accidents. And the agony and pain that comes to so many young women and their families and their extended relatives from this is not an accident. It is the result of a decision, and a decision that unfortunately, in my view, in our society, is not adequately discussed, and the implications of it are not adequately discussed. And as a result, these people keep these secrets instead of having an opportunity to have the love and support that they need around them. I thank you for letting me share my thoughts.